So it's always a big question in government. What are they not telling us? Because government's secretive, they hide things, them opaque. And the big question right now is, what is the government not telling us about the appointment of Dennis Chung as the Chief Technical Director of the Financial Investigations Division? I'm Dion Jackson Miller. Thanks so much for joining me. Time for tea. All right, so first of all, can I have a balloon drop, please? Okay, because we've now hit over 30,000 subscribers on the channel. And thank you so much to all of you who subscribe. Next goal is 40,000. Now we're heading for that 100,000 mark and the Silver Play Award. And you know, so we're going to get there, right? So more subs, more views, more growth. All of that will help me to give you more and better content. And I have so much in store for you. So thank you again. Right now, though, back to business. So you can check out the first video I did on the problem with the appointment of Chartered Accountant Dennis Chung as Chief Technical Director of the Financial Investigations Division. And let me say again, this is a process issue. It's not a personal issue. I'm really sorry it's Mr. Chung that's caught up in this mess, because he's a professional. He's always come across as a decent person. But there are some process and governance issues here that the government needs to deal with. There are questions the government needs to answer. And so far, they aren't doing that. So a reminder of how we got here. The Office of the Services Commission put out an ad in the Gleaner in November 2024 advertising the post of Chief Technical Director of the Financial Investigations Division. The criteria included 12 years law enforcement experience. The job, we now know, was offered the former Deputy Commissioner of Police Fitz Bailey, who recently retired from the police. But Mr. Bailey is now in the Turks and Caicos Islands as police commissioner, earning us money. So he said thanks, but no thanks. So they advertised the job again 2 months later in January 2025. Bam! Took out the law enforcement experience requirement, replaced it with senior managerial experience, and gave the job to Mr. Chung. And the question was, is somebody with his particular qualifications the best person to head a critical elite agency that deals with financial crime? The appointment also raised some eyebrows because of comments Mr. Chung had made. He was raising concerns about an Integrity Commission report, raising concerns about Prime Minister Andrew Holness's statutory declarations. And that report is now with the Financial Investigations Division, the very division Mr. Chung is heading, and they're supposed to decide what, if anything, to do with it. And I explained in my first video what the issues are with that. So let's break down what's happened since. Now, the Gleaner told us that the Office of Services Commission refused most of the Access to Information Act requests they made. They were asking for documents to do with the appointment. Now, they did get a master score sheet for all the applicants. We're told the top candidate, which I guess we assume is Fitz Bailey, scored 87.6%. The other candidates scored 74.5%, 72.4%, and 59.5%. Now, what that tells us is that the second place candidate with 74.5% wasn't considered good enough to get the job. The thing is, though, without something like a rubric, so we know how they were scoring, this doesn't tell us a whole lot. Was there some kind of cutoff point, like 75% or 80% below which they wouldn't hire anybody? If it's 75%, then couldn't they just push up the 74.5% to 75%? I'm just saying there's a lot we don't know here. Now, the Gleaner said that the Solicitor General confirmed that other official documents were identified in relation to what the Gleaner wanted to know, but said those documents were exempt from disclosure under the Access to Information Act law and will therefore not be disclosed. And the Gleaner was told the documents wouldn't be disclosed because it would constitute a breach of confidence, and also it would involve unreasonable disclosure of information relating to somebody. Now have a look at what the Gleaner was asking for and what was denied, and let's talk about that bit by bit. The Gleaner emailed questions to the Office of the Services Commissions on May 29. They wanted to know the reasons why the requirement for law enforcement experience was removed from the second ad that was denied. Now tell me something. Why the public can't know why you changed the requirements for the job, especially an important job like this? The Gleaner asked who gave the instruction for that requirement, for the law enforcement requirement to be removed from the second ad. That was denied. And again, I'm going to ask why we can't know that. So the Gleaner asked as well, how many candidates were shortlisted after the first ad? That was denied. Now we're really getting ridiculous with the denials, right? Why we can't know that? The Gleaner asked, kindly disclose why none of the shortlisted candidates were selected. That was denied. I'm just going to say here, LOL. Kindly disclose how many candidates were shortlisted after the second ad. That was denied. LOL again. Look, the man, those questions are not unreasonable questions. The Gleaner has a right to the answers, and so does the public. Now, look, them not have to tell with people personal information. As the Gleaner said, they can say we shortlisted 5 applicants after the second ad. That's an answer to the question. They don't have to tell us the personal information of the 5 people. Not answering such a basic question makes it look as if you do have something to hide. Honestly, it makes it look as if you never shortlist anybody. It make it look like, say, you just put out the ad and then you handed the job to Mr. Chung as a gift wrapped. I'm not saying that's what happened. I am saying when you don't answer such a basic and innocuous question, it makes it look as if something funny went on. I said in my first video, this was not a robust search for the person to head the FID, and I maintain that, having seen everything that has happened since then, right? You don't just put out one ad, you don't get your first choice because the person has another option, and then your reaction after that is then to change a critical element of the job description, put out a second ad 2 months later, and then go with somebody who doesn't have some of the qualifications that you had advertised in the first ad. Sure, things can be changed, searches can be broadened if you can't find the person you are looking for. I am saying, never look hard. Now look at the actual documents the Gleaner asked for, right? They wanted official correspondence, records of communication in relation to the decision to remove the requirement for the law enforcement experience. That was denied. They wanted to know who authorized or recommended the change in the qualifications. That was denied. They wanted minutes, memos, or decision records from meetings in which the change in qualifications was discussed, and the final recommendation and the appointment instrument of Mr. Chung. That was denied. Remember what I said, information or documents that's provided can be redacted. That's some of the information can be blacked out if, that's personal information you don't want the public to know about. Then now the Gleaner asked for the current job description for the post of Chief Technical Director and the job description for the 3 previous office holders. That was denied. We can't see a job description for a public sector post, and must joke on a make. The Gleaner asked for a list of applicants for the position, saying names can be redacted for privacy if necessary, including their backgrounds, how they met or did not meet the original or revised requirements. That was denied. Now granted, when you first read that, it sounds like it could be a little tricky, but as the Gleaner says, it can be dealt with by redactions. Clearly what they're asking about is a general kind of background of the people who applied. So in other words, if somebody applied and had 10 years law enforcement experience, why weren't they appointed? And that kind of information can be given, as I said, using redactions to protect people's privacy. The Gleaner also asked for any assessment or evaluation reports, right, that helped to form the basis of the final appointment. That was mostly denied. Remember, we did see that master score sheet. The Gleaner also asked for any communications from the Ministry of Finance in relation to the selection of the Chief Technical Director. Denied. They asked for a copy of Mr. Chung's contract. That was granted. I should say, by the way, I think the salary range for this job as advertised, 11.4 million to 15.4 million. I think that's low for this type of job and the skill sets we need. I think it should be way higher. Having said that, story not done. Bear in mind, the Solicitor General told the Gleaner they'd identified the documents. The Gleaner just wasn't going to get them because they were exempt from disclosure. Then came the Information Minister, thoroughly muddying the water to say there weren't any documents. That's why nothing was disclosed, because the documents never existed. So just to let you know, the Access to Information Act, even though it's called Access to Information, what you're entitled to is documents. So you can't call and ask to say, hey, tell me what was said in such and such meeting. They're going to tell you they can't disclose conversations. If you ask for the minutes of a meeting, now you can get the minutes because that's an actual document, all right? So the information minister tells a press briefing that what happened was conversations that would have taken place as part of the interview process. She said that's not a document, so that can't be provided under an Access to Information Act request. And then she said there's nothing to hide in relation to the selection process. All right, love to hear that. But if that's the case, then stop actually hiding things. Also explain how the Gleaner was told documents were exempt, and now the information minister is saying there weren't any documents. Have to explain that. And in fact, if there were no documents, the information minister needs to tell us what kind of patty shop the Office of Services Commission is running, where important decisions like that are not recorded anywhere, no memo, no minutes, nothing. No, that would have to be explained. Then no. Ministry of Finance sends out a statement saying they were clarifying the selection process. Let me say, first of all, anytime you hear a government say they might clarify something, it usually means they made some kind of boo-boo. So they want to clarify. I hope so we never notice. Me always notice. Anyway, statement never clarify a thing. And on top of that, they then withdrew it. So I won't waste any time on it. Other than to say, this whole idea of withdrawing statements after you issue them really isn't a thing. It's out there. Everybody have it. As a matter of fact, people now going to be looking at it even closer to say, what is it you're backing away from? But I guess they can always say, well, we told you we withdrew it, so you can't quote us saying that's our position. Not that there was much of a position in it anyway. So here's where we are. Government says there's nothing to hide, except they're hiding stuff. Basic information the Gleaner was asking for is being hidden from us. The kind of box shuffling and obfuscation that's taking place on this issue raises governance issues. It makes people trust government less. And people are already not trusting, right? This make it worse. So what do you think? Drop your comments below, all right? Just keep it civil. Like the video, share with somebody you think might be interested, and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so yet, and click that notification bell so you know anytime I drop a new video. I'm Dion. Thank you so much for watching. Back to my tea.